We're into the month of July, almost into August, which only means one thing: summer transfers. Welcome back everyone to Transfer Thursdays on Not a Thursday again. We are halfway through the transfer window already, so without further ado, let's just go over all the transfers that have happened so far. That are worth your time, at least. And we'll start all the way in June 1st. We're gonna do this in kind of like a day-by-day chronological order. After the abysmal campaign they had last season, Real Madrid needed more depth at center back. So in comes 20-year-old center back Dean Huijsen, who is quite honestly the perfect fit. He's wonderful on the ball, quite honestly, he just feels like an extra midfielder. And even crazier is that this is a transfer between Bournemouth and Real Madrid. Only, I would say, a decade ago, these two teams were playing a friendly against each other when Bournemouth just promoted. Either way, for 62.5 million, Dean Huijsen joins Los Blancos on a 5-year deal. Now, outside of Bournemouth and Real Madrid, we need to talk about Juventus for a second. It is pretty much a canon event for us to fumble a 10 at some point of our lives. And Juventus right now is feeling the brunt of that. It was pretty evident that Inter's midfield was getting quite old. I mean, just look at what PSG did to them. So, Inter bring in 21-year-old defensive midfielder Peter Sucic from Zagreb for 14 million on a 5-year deal. We go back to Real Madrid for this one, and after years of being linked with the club, 26-year-old right-back Trent Alexander-Arnold moves to the Spanish club on a 6-year deal. Now, this was considered a free transfer, but because Real Madrid wanted him sooner for the Club World Cup, they decided to pay an extra fee of 10 million. The saga between Trent Alexander-Arnold, Liverpool, and Real Madrid, though, was quite honestly a mess. Trent was claiming that he loved the club, all the while running down his contract, so then Liverpool could actually not get a single penny from him. What also didn't help his case and rubbed fans the wrong way was the fact that despite these rumors being a thing for years, he never said a word. Going back to Real Madrid's defense in particular though, there was, just like the center back position, no depth at right back after Dani Carvajal's injury. So Trent will definitely help in that regard, but on top of that, he's one of the most creative fullbacks in the world, which fits new manager Xabi Alonso's vision quite well. During Alonso's time at Leverkusen, there was a massive emphasis on wing backs and attack. And I fully expect to see the same thing with Trent. I just kind of wonder if the defending's going to be an issue. Again. On June 4th, 22-year-old forward Liam Delap moved from Ipswich to Chelsea for 35.5 million on a 6-year deal. Delap had 12 goals and 2 assists for Ipswich, which was almost 40% of their goals last season. And with Chelsea ranking 12th for goals scored in the second half of the season, this could be a big boost for not a bad price. 23-year-old attacking midfielder Gabri Veiga left Celta for the bag and is now back in Europe in probably a better personal financial state. Can't really blame the guy. But he moves from Al Ahly to FC Porto for 15 million on a 5-year deal. 23-year-old Luis Enrique moves from Marseille to Inter for 23 million on a 5-year deal. And no, not that Luis Enrique. Inter will hope to see even more goal production, with Luis Enrique scoring 7 goals and 7 assists last season. Jumping into June 9th now, Manchester City make their first purchase of the window, as Wolves starting left back Ryan Ait-Nouri makes the move for 36.8 million on a 5-year deal. It's insane to believe, but he is still only 24. This is what career mode does to your brain. City, though, had a massive issue at left back last season. I mean, there was no doubt there, which resulted in Gvardiol having to do a lot more work in defense, and as a result, he would often be caught out of position. Ryan Ait-Nouri, although not really a fullback Pep has ever worked with, should be able to fix this. Another area that Manchester City need to improve, because they failed to be proactive in the last window, was the midfield. Players like De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva, they just don't cut it anymore. So Manchester City decided to bring in 26-year-old center midfielder Thierry Reinders for 55 million on a 5-year deal. Reinders was always super underrated, but broke out for Milan last season with 10 goals and 4 assists. He is also part Indonesian, which means Indonesians will be even more unbearable than they usually are. But still though, it might take a little bit of time for this guy to adapt to the Prem. City still weren't done though, because then they decided to bring in 21-year-old right winger Ryan Cherki. For a while, people were wondering if this guy was ever going to have a breakout season or even live up to any of the hype that he was given. And finally, it happened last season when he scored 8 goals and 11 assists for Lyon. City fans should be very excited for this player, especially since it was only 36.5 million to bring him at the club, and since the age of 16, he's been very well known for his excellent dribbling ability. Another Bellingham goes to Dortmund. This time, it is 19-year-old center midfielder Job. He moves away from Sunderland for 30.5 million on a 5-year deal. So much for not being like your brother. Chelsea go in for a new defensive midfielder in 20-year-old Dario Asugo for 22.7 million on an 8-year deal. I thought we banned these deals. Either way, a good backup for Caicedo. It may take some time for him to adapt to the Premier League game, but also it might take some time for him to say hello to quite literally like the 100 players Chelsea signed since 2022. The rest of June didn't see any notable signings, but I did notice something on June 25th that was just a little weird. I'd like to call this the Great Kazakh Exodus. On this day, multiple players left on a free from FC Turan to Atirau. All of them moved to Atirau. What happened here? But yeah, outside of that, there was nothing. Now, July, on the other hand, oh my god. July 1st in particular was a chaotic day, and it usually is. That's just how most transfer windows work in the summer. But this one was a little different. Liverpool don't really spend the big bucks on a single player. Like, that just never happens. But when they do, they mean business. 22-year-old attacking midfielder Florian Wirtz goes from Leverkusen to Liverpool for 125 million euros for 5 years. And it all makes sense because at that young age, this man is one of the best attacking midfielders in the world right now. 2023-24 saw him score 11 goals and 11 assists. 2024-25, 10 goals and 12 assists. And that was only in the Bundesliga. Wirtz has ridiculous technical ability. This has been the case since he made his debut all the way back in like 2019. He's able to link up with his teammates very well and is also able to make something out of nothing. And on top of all of this, he is extremely versatile, which just provides Liverpool so much more fluidity in attack. And maybe I should say this again, right? He's 22. Liverpool, though, didn't even wait another day to continue raiding Leverkusen. With no more Trent, in came Jeremy Frimpong for 40 million on a 5-year contract. The most electric wingback and the best young attacking midfielder in the world. This club took the fluke allegations personal. But they still were not done, because then came another fullback in Milos Kerkez from Bournemouth. Robertson was getting older, and Šmikas was not really living up to standards, so the office needed to be proactive once again. So for 46.9 million, Liverpool bring in the 21-year-old left back. This young Hungarian is another promising and progressive fullback. So really, watch out for the Reds next season, because good lord. Now, taking a step back for a second, we all have our dream signings, right? Maybe it's Haaland to Barcelona, maybe it's Gyökeres to Arsenal, maybe it's even the concept of common sense to Manchester United. But what about, and hear me out, you to a life of no worries whenever you're surfing the treacherous currents of the internet? Well, that's all possible thanks to today's sponsor, Surfshark. Surfshark uses humanized privacy and security solutions to safeguard your data, meaning you can browse the internet safely without any stress of someone stealing your personal information. Also, recently, I had my boy Aldous come visit me in New York City for about a week, and immediately we had the urge to watch The Inbetweeners, a British show with so much cringe humor that it actually feels worse on the rewatch because you start remembering everything pretty much in the moment.
Make me laugh without undressing.
Unfortunately for us though, all the episodes are region locked. Ooh, so sad. I guess we won't be able to watch it. But I got Surfshark, baby. Just one simple click of a button and boom, my location is now in the UK. Bloody splendid, innit? And with Surfshark's over 3,200 servers in 100 different countries, you too will no longer have to worry about region-locked content anywhere your heart desires. Have I got you excited now? Well, if so, you can use my link display on the video or in the description to get Surfshark for an extra 4 free months. And there is no risk in trying this out because Surfshark has a 30-day money-back guarantee. So use my link, surfshark.com/Mac, to access region-locked content anywhere in the world and keep your private information safe. And a big thank you once again to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. 26-year-old forward Matheus Cunha has absolutely exploded over the last 2 seasons with 27 goals and 13 assists. United had the 5th worst attack all of last season, so they hope things will change with this signing as he comes in for 74.2 million on a 5-year contract. After years of tormenting Premier League clubs, including Watford, including Arsenal, Kevin De Bruyne's reign came to an end last season. The man is just not himself anymore. He's washed. And quite honestly, it was nice to revel in that. Anyways though, there were links to MLS and he said fuck that. Kevin De Bruyne has moved to Napoli instead for 2 years with an option of another. And with Serie A teams typically having a slower attacking tempo, this makes me think that Kevin De Bruyne isn't done just yet. 18-year-old forward Charalampos Koustulas moves to Brighton from Olympiacos for 35 million for 5 years. He has a pretty small sample size for that price, but he did have 7 goals in 13 starts at just 17 years old. On top of all these signings, newly promoted Sunderland break the club transfer record to bring in 21-year-old center midfielder Habib Diarra. For 31.5 million, it is a risky move, so hopefully it works out, because the gap between the Championship and the Premier League is only getting worse. Barcelona last year had a ton of problems at the goalkeeper position. Ter Stegen suffered a long-term injury, which then led to Wojciech Szczesny coming out of retirement to play for the club. Barcelona do not want that shit to happen again, so they bring in 24-year-old goalkeeper Joan Garcia for 25 million. But this is a very interesting transfer because not often do you see players from Espanyol go to Barcelona, because they're rivals. Especially with Joan Garcia being one of the reasons why Espanyol stayed up last season. It's going to be very interesting to see this guy back in Espanyol in a Barcelona shirt. For about 18 million, Leeds are getting themselves one of the most underrated defenders right now. Udinese, he's always been really solid, but more people will probably know him for his incredible defensive work during Euro 2024. Atletico Madrid signed 22-year-old left-back Matteo Ruggeri from Atalanta for 17 million for 5 years. I only really wanted to mention this one because at 20, this guy allegedly was full send DMing every single teenager in Bergamo. Bournemouth bring in 23-year-old left-back Adrian Truffert for 13.5 million on a 5-year deal. With Kerkez gone, I mean, this only made sense. 19-year-old attacking midfielder Ibrahim Matza makes a big move as he goes from 2nd division German club Hertha Berlin to Leverkusen for 12 million on a 5-year contract. With this guy, I only mention him because he's part Vietnamese, but he picked Algeria. Arsenal needed a backup keeper, and with Mikel Arteta getting a hard-on every single time he signs any kind of meme player from Chelsea, he now decides to go for 30-year-old goalkeeper Kepa. But to be fair, the fee was only 5.8 million for 3 years. 26-year-old defensive midfielder Georgi Kokorashvili goes from Levante to Sporting for 5.5 million on a 5-year deal. 29-year-old right-winger Leroy Sané has not really had the best time at Bayern. A lot of people thought he would be fantastic after his stint with Man City. It's not been that way. He's more well known for punching a camera than anything else he did at Bayern. The chapter's over though, finally, as he moves to Galatasaray for 3 years on a free transfer. Speaking of Turkish football, 24-year-old center midfielder Orkun Kokcu moves from Benfica to Besiktas on loan. He had 7 goals and 7 assists last season, so this is another big W for Turkish football. After all of that, now we have finally moved to July 2nd, believe it or not. And to start this day, Chelsea continue to throw more money at the attack as they bring in 23-year-old forward Joao Super Senior Pedro. He had 10 goals and 6 assists for Brighton in 23 starts, and he will be moving for 63.7 million and staying for 8 years. Again, I thought we banned this. 23-year-old left winger Alex Baena had 2 wonderful seasons at Villarreal. 14 assists in 23-24, then he had 7 goals and 9 assists in 24-25. That earns him a move to Atletico Madrid for 42 million on a 5-year deal. After pillaging a now shabby Alonso-less Leverkusen, Liverpool leave a parting gift for the evil pharmaceutical company, as 22-year-old centre-back Jorel Kwanzaa leaves Liverpool for Leverkusen for 35 million on a 5-year deal. 19-year-old left winger and Joaquin reincarnate Jesus Rodriguez moves from Betis to Como for 22.5 million on a 5-year contract. For Kamaldeen Sulemala, nothing has gone well in 3 years with Southampton, but it's not too late for his career. He's only 23 years old, so he'll be trying to revitalize it at Atalanta for 17 million on a 4-year deal. July 3rd saw a player who was linked with the club for numerous years finally actually moved to that club. 23-year-old defensive midfielder Samuele Ricci moves from Torino to Milan for 23 million on a 4-year deal, which includes an option for another one. For Milan, this is a great addition considering they just saw Tiani Reinders leave. 20-year-old attacking midfielder Antoni Milambo had 3 goals and 5 assists in 25 starts last season for Feyenoord. That now sees him move to Brentford for 20 million on a 5-year contract. July 4th, 2025, a day that will be marked forever in the history of transfers. Because finally, after 900 posts by Fabrizio Romano, 25-year-old forward Jonathan David is actually moving to a club. Jonathan David over the last 5 years has been one of the most clinical and consistent strikers out there. Each of the last 5 seasons, he's seen more than 10 plus goals, and this is a great addition for Juventus on an even better deal as he moves on a free for 5 years. Brazilians going to one of the most racist clubs in the world. A tale as old as time. 28-year-old center midfielder Gerson moves to Zenit for 25 million on a 5-year contract. At just 17 years old, Honest Ahanor is climbing up the ranks really quickly. The promising left back is now off to one of the best clubs for young players in Italy as he moves to Atalanta for 17 million for 3 years. Young Dortmund teenager breaks out. The next season, he's sold for 50 million plus. A tale as old as time. 20-year-old left winger Jamie Bino Gittins had 8 goals and 3 assists in 21 starts for Borussia Dortmund. This prompted Chelsea to whip out even more stacks as they pay 64.3 million to bring this guy in for 7 years. Inter go in for another attacker. This time it's the promising forward Anju Unfunny for 23 million on a 5-year deal. The 21-year-old was Parma's best attacking player last season with 10 goal contributions. Highly rated Brazilian forward Igor Jesus was one of the standouts in the Club World Cup this year. This earns the 24-year-old Botafogo player a move to Forest for 11.6 million on a 4-year deal. A good proactive signing considering Chris Wood is like 80 years old. 30-year-old center forward Kyogo Furuhashi moves from Rennes to Birmingham for 9 million on a 3-year deal. God help his soul. Into July 6th and the Gooners saw a big one. Oh. 26-year-old midfielder Martin Zubamendi moves from Sociedad to Arsenal for 70 million on a 5-year deal. It finally happened, ladies and gentlemen, and it's another Spaniard from Sociedad. Arteta could not be any hornier. Zubamendi is ridiculously good at breaking the lines with his passes, and he has barely any hesitation in his step, which allows the attacking build-up to be a lot swifter. He's also a whole lot less of a liability than the alleged rapist. Another youngling getting the bag and then immediately returning to the spotlight. 21-year-old forward Jean Duran had 1 season at Al Nassr and now he's moving on to Fenerbahce for a season loan. Another W for the country of Turkey. Their league could genuinely be very fun to watch this year. July 8th saw Leeds make another move for the defense, hoping to bolster it up in the wake of their return to the Premier League. This time they signed 26-year-old left-back Gabriel Gudmundsson from Lille for 11.6 million on a 4-year deal. Like an American tourist coming to Japan for the first time, Spurs poach a really good meal for very cheap, as they bring in promising 20-year-old center-back Kota Takai from Kawasaki for 5.8 million on a 5-year deal. Another promising player making a big move was 18-year-old right winger Lazar Jovanovic. The Red Star youngster will be moving to Stuttgart for 5 million for 4 years. Everton last season had the worst attack of any team that stayed up. So in comes another forward in 22-year-old Tierno Barry. The new signing had 11 goals and 4 assists for Villarreal last season. So now with Beto and Barry, maybe this is what helps Everton score more than 2 goals in a season. Sunderland make another bold move, throwing 20 million at right winger Chemsdean Talbi. The 20-year-old had 7 goals and 5 assists last season for Club Brugge. So that all said, all the figures are telling me this is going to be a bust. And it's going to be entirely Sunderland's fault. After 10 seasons with Atletico Madrid, 30-year-old right winger Angel Correa moves to Tigres for 8 million on a 5-year deal. July 10th, and we started with Mohamed Kudus making a move elsewhere. Simply put, a talented player at a club they just didn't fit at. This is pretty much the West Ham transfer policy at this point. Anyways, Mohamed Kudus writes a new chapter in his career as he moves to Spurs for 63.8 million on a 6-year deal. 27-year-old left-back Teo Hernandez over the last 5-6 years has been considered one of Milan's key players. Over the last 2 seasons, he's fallen off a cliff though. Last year in particular, it just didn't seem like he gave much of a shit. And in turn, he was absolutely dog shit. So he's been shipped off to Al Hilal for just 25 million on a 3-year deal. 23-year-old left winger Simon Adingra is a very exciting talent. But the problem is, outside of a few moments, he's been pretty invisible. So he hopes to find his flow elsewhere as he moves to Sunderland for 24.4 million on a 5-year deal. Into July 11th now. 23-year-old right winger Anthony Elanga immediately found success after leaving that shithole in Manchester. 24-25 in particular saw him score 6 goals and collect 11 assists as well. This prompted the Saudi Public Investment Fund to spend the big bucks, as Anthony Elanga is now a Magpie for 61.4 million. In terms of the move itself, it's a wonderful one. Anthony Elanga thrives off counterattacks and that kind of fast-tempo Newcastle play. And with Gordon and Isak, I mean, this front line could be deadly.
You've got to sell players, you have to sell them, you might get a bit more.
Have to sell, Gabby. If you listen to what I'm saying, we don't have to sell. The papers have been talking nonsense for months.
I read it in the papers that you have to sell.
Oh, so So you believe your mates in the media?
20-year-old left winger Ruben van Bommel, yes, that's right, that's Mark van Bommel's son, signs for PSV from Alkmaar for 15.8 million on a 5-year deal. July 12th only saw one notable signing, not really one that's important to most of the world, but it's important to me and the rest of the USMNT fanbase. 23-year-old attacking midfielder Malik Thielman was finally able to find his footing when he signed for PSV. In 2 seasons, he's been fantastic. 9 goals and 10 assists in 23-24, and 12 goals and 2 assists in 24-25. He now returns to Germany, though, to fill in a massive hole at Leverkusen, as the American international signs for 35 million on a 5-year deal. After 12 whole seasons with RB Leipzig, being there with them since they were in the 3rd division all the way to the Champions League, 31-year-old center forward Yusuf Poulsen finally leaves the club and signs with Hamburg for 1 million on a 2-year deal. Hamburg just promoted, so Poulsen could provide some good experience and leadership. Now July 14th, after leaving for free, 22-year-old left-back Alvaro Carreras returns to his boyhood club of Real Madrid for 50 million on a 6-year deal. With Mendy inconsistent and Fran Garcia Lamau, Carreras could be the answer to Madrid's shortcomings at left back. 18-year-old right winger Esteval is one of the most highly touted youngsters in the world right now, and he has the numbers to back it up. 13 goals and 9 assists for Palmeiras at just 16. This prompted Chelsea to spend even more money on their attack, 34 million this time, as Esteval signs for 8 years. 23-year-old center midfielder Johnny Cardoso makes the move from Real Betis to Atletico Madrid for 24 million on a 5-year deal. For the US, he looks like he's never played the position, but for Betis, he's been exceptional. It's a fantastic acquisition for Atleti. Leipzig this window have been pretty active, but nothing will compare to this particular day, where they signed 3 new players for a total of 52 million euros. July 17th, maybe I just don't care as much to seek it out, but since he stopped talking so much shit, Noah Lang's been popping off. 11 goals and 10 assists last season for PSV, this now sees him make the move to Napoli for 25 million on a 5-year contract. City were not happy with just one highly rated Norwegian youngster, no, they decided to go in for another one, 18-year-old center midfielder Sverre Nipan. From Rosenborg, he moves for 15 million on a 5-year deal. July 18th, or as I like to call this, the day that we really need to address the whole issue of Arsenal fans not confronting their PTSD. 23-year-old right winger Noni Madueke has shown glimpses, but for the most part, he's been pretty inconsistent since signing with Chelsea. And over the last few weeks, Madueke has been linked with Arsenal. And also during that same period, every Arsenal fan on social media has lost their mind. For absolutely no reason. I really don't get this whole thing with Arsenal fans not understanding the concept of, I don't know, depth. But anyways, now Noni Madueke is actually officially an Arsenal player for 54.4 million on a 5-year contract. Outside of most people, I kind of like the signing, even if it's a little too much money. Just one thing though, if I see anyone bring the Mandem FC thing into this club, I will personally beat them with hammers. Danilo started well at Forest when he first signed with Palmeiras. However, he became quite inconsistent in his 2nd season, and after an injury in the first game of the 3rd season, his role was basically taken over by teammate Elliot Anderson. So now he returns to Brazil to rediscover his form and moves to Botafogo for 23 million on a 4-year deal. 27-year-old right winger John Arias was another Club World Cup star and led his club Fluminense to a semi-final. And those same fans will be very saddened to see their star leave, as he moves to Wolves for 17 million. The question now is, will this be enough for Wolves to stay up next season? Into July 20th, and Napoli are just not fucking around whatsoever after their Scudetto triumph. Conte this time decides to strengthen their defense and brings in 26-year-old center back Sam Bukema. The solid defender from Bologna signs for 31 million on a 5-year deal. 24-year-old center midfielder Neil El Ainui moves to Roma for 23.5 million on a 5-year deal. He had 8 goals and 1 assist for loans last season. And finally, July 21st, and we saw something that no one expected to happen at all. 25-year-old right winger Brian Mbeumo had 20 goals and 7 assists and was absolutely crucial for Brentford last season. United, as we've mentioned before, having the 5th worst attack in the league last season, bring him in for 75 million euros. And I guess they spent all the money just trying to get the guy, because this was the reveal. a single Twitter post. Meanwhile, Mbumo recreated a scene from fucking Interstellar for his goodbye message to Brentford fans. 26-year-old center forward Matteo Retegui goes from Atalanta to Al Qadsiya for 68.2 million for 3 years. No signing screams Italy's football is more finished than this. Retegui was the top scorer last season, and immediately after, he goes for the bag. He's only 26, man. After numerous years of being fucked over by the club's mismanagement, Marcus Rashford is finally writing a new chapter. He's going to Barcelona on loan with an option to buy for 30 million euros. He won't be a starter, but he has a lot of potential to be a fantastic super sub off the bench. It would also bring me so much joy to see him do well, so then I don't have to hear a single thing from those dipshit United YouTube channels that don't know anything about this sport. PSG sold this guy way too early. I just had a feeling the moment this guy went to Frankfurt, he was gonna pop off. But damn! 22 goals and 12 assists in all competitions last season. He's great in transition with this pace, so that should work really well with Liverpool's fast tempo. Who am I talking about? Of course, I'm talking about 23-year-old center forward Hugo Ekitike, who moves from Frankfurt to Liverpool for 95 million. This guy is also really good in the air, but just keep in mind he is still pretty young and has some work to do. In particular, his finishing ability does need a little bit of refining. And finally, it is about fucking time. It has felt like actual centuries have passed, but finally, Arsenal has a striker. And that man is Victor Einar Gyökeres from Sporting for 65.7 million euros. He had 39 goals in 31 league starts last season, 6 Champions League goals in 6 starts. This was the most lethal striker on the market, and we got him. Shit brings me to tears knowing where we were 5 years ago. Gyökeres is a bulldozer of a striker. His intensity is the kind that creates chances for himself and his own teammates. Which means finally, I don't have to see our attack get frozen and opt for low chance crosses for 90 whole minutes. And that right there was Transfer Thursdays. You're welcome, everyone that still misses the series from like 3 years ago. These were the transfers that I thought were important to me. What were the transfers that were important to you that weren't included into this? Let me know in the comments below. Of course, though, a massive shout out to all our members, including Janos Balash, Lugar BB, Aresan, Brazilian Fury, Jeremiah Usu Ajamang, Valera, Django, Azir Makalongcom, Alex Rod, Slider Kid, Takoka Fan, Kentra Gatra, Saint Terrence, Sylvia Citrus, Rashford Enthusiast, Cheesebait, Winter Gel, Finn Likes Rugby More, Davox, The Portergeyser, Wise Orange, Polo Protos, Von Fan, Lucian Von Krois, Gajagger Special Kivix, A Ghostly Owl, Coney Wolves, Lickstab, Mudtanai, Sketchy Card, Apollo, Congo Jas 1, German Sayu 7, Thrilling ADT 13, Los Milos, James Braun, Vecino, Jamie Vardy's 10th Red Bull, Nightwalker, Knapside, Money Cash Hose, Quantavious Pork, Lilia Lover, Stewed Monk, Tyler A. Davis, A Red Devil for Life, Tung 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 Sahur, Red Yellow, Kev C, Dominic Griffin, Kyler Krebs, Mohammed Altanib, Nish, Patrick Barley, Rashford God 5, Raspberry Ale, and Unbroken Persona. If you'd like to become a member on the channel, there'll be a link down below and up in the annotations. You can follow me on Twitter if you want, follow me on Instagram if you like, follow me on Twitch, especially now that we have the league going on and I'm part of that whole thing. So definitely check that out. But until then, I'll see you guys.